Hi, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment telling me about your favorite part.
Okay, for everyone at home who's watching this, you missed a hell of an introduction, but it's okay. I'm Adetinpo, and this is Erica, and this is Actor Nightcap.
That's the important stuff.
Right. I just, as long as we're all aware of what the highlights are.
Right.
Here we go. Erica Bream, CSA, started working in casting when she was 18 years old. Since then, she has worked on projects across all mediums, including titles such as Ordinary Joe, NBC, watch it, it's good. Tell Me Your Secrets, Amazon. Altered Carbon, Netflix. Criminal Minds, CBS, Star Trek. Into Darkness, Paramount. 11/22/63 on Hulu, and many others. Notably, Bream has cast 11 seasons of the prestigious Young Playwrights Festival for the Blank Theater Company. Over the years, Bream's work in theater, short film, and television casting has garnered her 9,
Artios.
pronounce it, Aritos.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Atois, so I'm glad
this is a normal mispronunciation, yep.
Aritos nominations and a win in the Los Angeles theater category. Also, you can follow her at Erica S. Bream, CAS. Is that CSA?
No, Erica S. Bream Cast.
Cast. There's a T missing. We talked about this in the email.
Yep.
Erica S. Bream Cast on Instagram and on Twitter.
And on Twitter, yeah. Just those two. Okay. If you find me anywhere else, it's not me.
It's not her. Don't do that. Don't follow her there. That's not her.
No.
So, Erica.
Yes.
Tell us. I read your bio. You started at 18. You're working on several shows right now, and you've worked on a dozen shows before that. Tell us who you are, and especially the things that weren't in your bio. What did that not cover? I know sometimes those are brag sheets, but what's the fun facts that we want to know about you?
Well, I mean, y'all can find my credits in all the different places, right? Outside of that bio, you can find me in IMDb. You can find all that stuff. Outside of all of that, I'm a mom. I've got 2 little kids, 2 little boys.
How old are they?
They are 4.5 and 9 months.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I didn't realize you just had a baby.
I had a baby last summer in the middle of the pandemic. That was a trip.
Those pandemic babies are different.
I tell
they're like extra loved and people have paid attention to them. I don't know what a generation of people like that's going to be like.
Right. They go on FaceTime a lot earlier than the other babies, but that's okay.
That's it.
So I've got those 2, I've got my 2 boys. And I think the other big piece of information that's not totally in my bio is that I moved from LA after 17 years. I live in the Southeast. I've been here 4.5 years now. And I really love it. I loved being in LA. LA is a really special place, but I really super duper love being in the Southeast. I think it's a really fun, delicious market to be in terms of the work that's available, but also in terms of the actors that are here, the diversity of actors that are here, the growing community of actors that are here. So it's been a really fun switch. I really got to, try different facets of casting. Mm-hmm. So not only did I work with an independent casting director, but I spent some time in voice over casting. I spent some time working at a talent agency, which I don't ever want to do again. I spent some time working at a network during a pilot season. So I just kind of got to go all over the place and try different versions of this. Mm-hmm. And because, again, it was back in the time of unpaid internships where you let the interns do a lot of stuff, I got a lot of really great experience in all of those different arenas, trying different things and being involved in sessions and helping out on projects and things like that. So, that was how it all started for me. It was I would intern with whomever would take me.
And how was that experience? I mean, unpaid internships, thank goodness they are no longer legal, but God knows what people would put up with. And I think, you know, a lot of us actors experience that as well, when you're like non-union in a different state, so I have to pay taxes in 2 states and it's only $100 for the day. I'll do it for the credit, you know. What was that like as a casting director going in? And that's, you know, most casting directors don't start wanting to be casting directors.
Right.
So what did you do in North Dakota that made you go, LA casting? That's the thing.
Well, so that's an excellent question, because obviously it's not like a booming production area. But I did a lot of high school theater. I loved theater, always loved theater. And my mom is from New Jersey, New York. And
okay,
so
cool.
That whole side of the family is out there. And so we would always go visit my grandparents, and they'd take us into Manhattan and we'd go see a show on Broadway. And I just fell in love with it at a really, really young age, and loved theater. Still love theater. That's why I still do my sweet theater festival every year. And that was my thing. I loved being on stage. I loved collaborating. I loved the whole thing, but I hated auditioning. I would just lose.
What?
That's
crazy. Why wouldn't you want to audition? It's the best thing. It's so good for my self-esteem.
Especially when
it's not
you're
expensive
a teenager.
at all.
Right.
What, you don't love that? That's crazy.
I know. Wild, isn't it? So I was a teenager auditioning for my high school musicals, and I would just turn bright red. I wouldn't be able to breathe. I mean, you know, obviously this is incredibly low stakes. It's just the high school musical. And my choir instructor always took pity on me, and they'd always give me a role, because once I was on stage, I was fine. You all know, you know.
Right.
So once I was on stage, I was fine. It was just the actual audition process that I would just lose my mind over. So I very, very, very quickly was like, I don't want to be an actor. Like, that's not for me. No, thank you. But I loved performing and I loved collaborating. So I wanted to see what was the closest next best thing. And I was like, casting, I think, should have something to do with actors. So I didn't know. But my wonderful East Coast grandmother, never said no to a challenge. And, you know, this was, of course, back before there were, most people didn't use email then, you know, I mean, so this was back in the day. And so there wasn't a lot of things that you could research, but she just like made it her duty to figure out how she could help me break into this field. And she was the one, she called a friend, she got me this internship at a talent agency, and that talent agency hooked me up with the first casting office that I ever worked with. So
wow,
all due to my wonderful grandmother, who was all about researching and figuring out how she could help me. So I graduated high school in North Dakota, and 2 days later I was in New York interning. So I just went for it right off the bat. And from the first moment that I got to experience a casting office, and I didn't do anything. I mean, I checked people in and I answered phones and I took Polaroids of people, to age myself even further. And
we remember Polaroids.
Thank you. I know they're coming back now. And I thought that was the best thing that had ever happened to me. It was just sitting in that waiting room with everybody. You know, as you all know, you wonderful actors give off this gorgeous energy. And so to be an 18-year-old in New York City sitting in this steaming hot audition waiting room, not even the audition room, but the audition waiting room with a bunch of actors, I thought I died and went to heaven. I mean, I just thought it was the best thing in the world. So I never looked back. That was it. I dabbled a little bit in some other areas of the industry. I have a background in photography, so for a brief time I thought maybe I wanted to. These studios and networks have photography departments where they're hiring the on-set photographers, they're hiring the press photographers, they're going through all the stills from the movies, they're helping curate the posters and stuff like that. So I tried that for a little bit. It's just a very quiet existence. It's a very quiet. I spent a lot of time just with a magnifying glass, just looking through slides. So that was enough for me there. But yeah, that's how I got into it. It's just kind of started doing it when I was a baby, and here I am.
Okay, I have several follow-up questions.
Right, hit me.
So your grandma hooked you up with her friend's grandma's brother, and then you ended up in New York casting. How did you end up in LA? because so many people
So,
don't know which market to start in. So even as a casting
so
director, that's an interesting issue to have.
right. So I the only reason I went to New York was because of my grandmother. That's where she had her hookup. But I had
Shout out
already
to
been
Grams.
yep, always grandma. But I had already been admitted to USC in Los Angeles. So
Oh,
I that first internship, that first experience had a finite amount of time where I was like, this has been fun, peace, I'm going to school. So then I went out to LA, and I would in every summer between my years, and then eventually during the semester as well, I would intern between school years, and then, like I said, eventually I started doing it during the school when I got old enough and didn't have to take a million classes anymore.
mm.
I started doing it during the school year as well. And they were longer because I wasn't leaving town to go anywhere. So those summer internships would sometimes last 9 months into the semester, where it was just I was having fun. They were flexible with me because they weren't paying me, and so they were like, "Cool, you want to go from being here 4 days a week to being here 1 day a week? We'll take you." And I was like, "Great." So yeah, I just kind of worked my way through it that way, and so that New York experience was kind of my only New York experience,
Mm.
in terms of working physically in Manhattan. But yeah, I'm kind of an LA girl. I mean, now I'm a Southeast girl, but I'm an LA girl.
What did you study at USC?
I studied film. I
Okay.
started. I should. This is important. I started as a business major.
Same. Oh my God.
That lasted half a semester, and I was failing all of my classes. And I had chosen to go to USC because of the film program. But I thought I was trying to be like the smart, the wise 18-year-old and be like, well, I'm gonna major in business and minor in film so that I have a business degree, blah 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 blah. But it turns out I am not a math
Oh
person.
yeah, accounting too took me out.
And that, I mean, that's a really important part of getting a business degree. So
Yes.
I was legitimately failing out of school, and I was like, okay, time to reassess and go the other direction. So I then made film my major and completely dumped business entirely. And yeah, so there's multiple facets of film. I was a critical studies major, which is like theory and history, as opposed to production, which is production.
Hmm.
We all have to make our own films, no matter what your major is. So I have made some very bad student films, but I didn't have to make them a lot, like some of my other peers. So yeah.
Yeah, it looks like several people in the chat have experienced this. I was in the middle of a summer semester of business statistics in July. I had
Mm-hmm.
just finished a major test, and we had like three that week. And I was like, fuck this shit. I was like, I'm not gonna be working at KPMG. I'm not gonna be working at Deloitte. And I think I walked from that class to the advisor and dropped my degree that day. And like I was like, no, it's okay. My theater degree is gonna be fine. And then jokes on them. It's going okay for both of us.
That's right. That's right. My
Follow your
gosh.
dreams, kids.
I
Um,
tell ya.
okay, so I also wanted to know. So you answered part of this. You were saying that you're a student
Hmm.
while you're doing a lot of this, and that's kind of how it worked out. Because my question, and this is something I ask pretty much any friend I have that I know books, and I'm like, so what do you do for work in between? Because
Mm-hmm.
I know several people who work enough as an actor that they can't have a full-time job, and it's
Sure.
consistent enough and inconsistent enough that you can't really have a part-time job that needs you to be reliable, but like it's also not enough money because the Southeast co-star is still a thing. So you're not making guest star money doing guest star size roles that are keeping you from having a regular job. How do people make money? So I'm curious about how y'all make money. Please drop it in the chat because your girl needs to know. But
She's
also,
not working at
I'm wondering if
KPMG
there's
anymore.
anything as a casting director that you've heard of that's been good, or even that you've done in the meantime. It's been a long
So
journey.
so yeah. So when I was interning, I worked at the Gap. I did all of the terrible, and I worked. If anybody is familiar with LA, I worked at the Gap at the Grove, which is the worst Gap. um, but I would do stuff like that. Sometimes the internships would pay me mileage, and I would legitimately live off that, you know, the
Mm.
whatever, $26 a day kind of thing, whatever. I also had very supportive parents who were willing to help me out so that I could work for free and not completely starve. The some of the stuff that I started doing to supplement my life as a casting director, as a professional casting director, because of course we don't start getting paid, even still we don't get paid a lot of money per project, but certainly when you are starting out you don't. I looked into a number of different things to sort of help back me up, which was I looked into doing transcription services. I looked into doing intense couponing.
Ooh. Gonna ask you to unpack that soon.
Someday. I don't do it anymore, so I feel like I'm not up to date on it. But I looked into a number of different ways, you know, what small thing can I do to help? And especially when, you know, once I got married and had kids, when we moved here from LA, I had worked consistently in LA from the time I was 22 until we moved. So I'd only had maybe one teeny tiny break in there in terms of my employment. Was very, very lucky to be consistently employed on different projects, working with different casting directors from the time I was 22 until we moved. And then, you know, I had my first child, which is the reason we moved, by the way. I had my first child 5 months before we moved. And so I didn't work from that time until we got here. And I was like, okay, I'll, you know, once we get there, I'll get hired as a regional casting director. It'll be great, whatever. And my phone didn't ring right away for a while. And I was like, now I have a mortgage and a kid, and my husband took a pay cut so we can move here. So I got to figure out something I can do to help. And so then it was just a matter of kind of reprioritizing different things, trying to figure out, okay, if I can do this side stuff of, you know, private coaching or something like that, maybe that can help. You know, ideally your survival job is aligned with the arts, but that's not always the luck, right?
Yeah.
Like that just isn't how it necessarily goes. But I find that I'm more motivated if it is aligned, right? So it doesn't feel quite like it's something that's taking you away from your goals, if it is something that is somewhat related. But that said, if it's not related, it's a bartending job, it's a food service job, whatever. The money you make from whatever your day job is, whatever your survival job is what allows you to pursue your dream. And so it doesn't matter what that job is. It's providing you freedom. So, you know, I was talking, because this happens a lot in the Southeast especially, right? Because down here, people really do have multiple lives down here. Whereas in LA, it's like, I'm an actor and I'm going to do these 18 million jobs so I can be an actor. And here people are like, I'm also a marketing consultant and I do live travel. Like they literally have.
Yeah, I saw a special ed teacher and Chippendale, like all kinds of things in here.
But
Script doctor.
True second careers, not just survival jobs necessarily. And I was talking with an actor recently, and he was gaining some momentum in terms of his acting, and he was booking more and more. And he was like, you know, my job's flexible, but I kind of feel like I'm spending too much time doing that job when I should be spending more time on my acting. And I was like, okay, well, and he's a grown up, he's in his 40s, he's got a family, whatever. And I said, what you earn from your job, does that help you in your family? And he said, yes. And I said, what you earn from that job, does that help you with your acting? And he said, yes, it allows me to buy new equipment or to take classes or whatever. And I was like, then there is nothing wrong with that job.
Okay.
You can
hello somebody. Okay. No, that's good to hear.
Yeah, you can start finding ways to balance it out so that you don't feel like you're leaving your acting dreams behind. There is absolutely nothing wrong with a day job. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a survival job. And it doesn't matter if you take that job with you all through your entire career or multiple jobs. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Being a starving artist isn't sexy. I've never really understood that like romanticization of like, oh no, all I do is, I mean, and And if that's your ministry, absolutely. My ministry is not to be hungry and to live inside and to eat more than
Totally.
ketchup sandwiches. So what I've had to do to support that is also do other things. Like I've PA'd, I've been an office PA. There's so many things,
Totally.
but I think
Totally.
it's great to destigmatize the fact that you have to be able to survive,
Yes.
and it's not shameful to want to live comfortably. Because I think what a lot of people are seeing in the Southeast, especially Atlanta, is that you can have the opportunity to book, sure, and it's not as easy as people think when they're moving from LA, but you have the opportunity to book, but you also don't have to share your bedroom with 3 other people. Like you can still live in like a 2-bedroom with another roommate and have a part-time job where maybe you really only do work 20 or 30 hours a week and you're still like
Yes.
alive and thriving. Does that make sense? So
yes, of course. And
if you needed to hear this, I don't know who needs to hear this, but it's okay to have another job.
Yes. And I was watching have you all seen Tick Tick Boom?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
So good.
If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. But it's watching Jonathan Larson, and he's a starving artist, and he's talking about leaving his job, the only thing that pays him any sort of money. And yeah, there's a dream there, but there's also like his electricity gets turned off right when he needs it most, So I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with a job that is outside of the arts if it sustains your life in the arts. That's my personal opinion. And it doesn't matter what it is. And there is nothing that is quote unquote beneath anybody if it is what ultimately puts you on the path toward succeeding with your goals as an actor. So that whole mentality of like, oh, this actor works at Trader Joe's, like who cares?
Right. And at that point, it becomes an ego thing, which I think is difficult to divorce yourself from, because you don't want to be the person at Trader Joe's and they're like, yeah, excuse me, where's the pineapple? Didn't I see you in who on who's, like, I think that becomes the concern, the turmoil, which isn't unreasonable, but
realistically, if you take up the percentage number of actors who survive financially off of acting, it is a very small percentage. A very, and this is we'll just say the United States, right? Just to limit it somewhat, not even talking about Canada or the UK or Australia or whatever, but the actors in the United States, I would say, in terms of like movie stars, 5% of actors are movie stars, right? That the movie stars that you know of right now. Then maybe another like 5 to 10% are surviving solely on their acting fees. And everybody else is making it work. It's totally normal. It's totally fine. There's no shame in doing whatever you need to do to continue pursuing your acting goals.
I think, though, in that same vein, I become curious, and I have this conversation a lot, where there's merit in working really hard to fulfill your dream, but how much of your current comfort do you sacrifice for that dream? Because with people like Jonathan Larson, he never saw rent. Like he didn't see the success that came from his work. So I think that becomes a conversation then about enjoying the process as much as you're enjoying the goal, because being exclusively goal oriented, which is something I recently had to pivot from, if you're speeding through the journey there, the journey is the point.
100%.
So I don't know. I think about that when I think of people like Eliza Hamilton or Martin Luther King's wife, where it's like, absolutely, you're married to these men who history now holds in such high esteem, but like you were at home by yourself watching those kids.
It's sure.
And you probably couldn't complain to anybody because everybody loves your husband.
Right. Yeah, I think with going through the process of, wanting to get to your next acting job or wanting to get back onto a set or whatever, if you're forgetting the joy of the process of getting to that point, then what's the point? The audition process isn't always fun. It isn't always full of feedback or super gratifying. But it's literally part of the job, right? So if you're sort of resentful of part of your job as an actor and not enjoying this process to get you to set, you're going to have a hard time getting there, because that sort of angst, that energy comes through. We can see it. It reads all over you. Same thing when you're like, I need this money, I need this job. We see it. It reads on you energetically. Can't miss it.
And I think that's also something that gets tricky. I've heard this phrasing a lot, and I'm not coming for anybody in Atlanta for sure, but people who've tuned into this more than once. I hate when people are like, well, auditioning is the job. And it's like, no, acting is the job. And I get to act during my auditions.
Right.
Like, so when you get the piece, I can't tell you how many times in the last couple of weeks I've been like, fuck, what is this? What are these sides? What is the story even? And then I'm finished doing it. I'm like, I'm glad I didn't turn that down. That was fun. Because that was the point.
Right.
Like, if I never, I I was listening to the Good Place podcast back when the Good Place was on TV, and one of the actors was talking about how doing self tapes is like shitting in a river. Like, you don't know what becomes of it, but like, you did it. It was there. And I think that's so true, especially, and I know you understand our English with how it feels to just kind of send things into the ether. And you're like, I don't know if anyone ever saw it, but that might be the thing that, now casting is going, okay, in this folder, because I've heard people actually have literal folder, well, not tangible folders because it's, digital age, but they have a folder on their computer and they're like, people we want to circle back to because they killed that one role, but they were too tall or too short or too whatever. And I find that comforting. But also being paid is comforting too. I'm just saying, I digress. As we go forward though, the last thing I want to circle back to that you said before my next question is, you talked about the energy of being in the room. And then of course, now you just referenced what it's like watching tapes and watching people, and you can see it, you can sense their desperation. You can sense the
need.
Yeah, their neediness. What are your thoughts on that? Especially when it comes to people kind of feeling like COVID's over. It's not over. Don't believe the hype. Going back into the room, self-taping, is there anything that you feel like needs to be addressed, needs to be talked about before other people bring up questions about?
This is sort of goes back to something that you already mentioned, which is, a lot of times people are like, did they even watch it? Did they even see it? Right? We get that all the time. Do you watch all the tapes you get? Do you blah, blah, blah? We're asked constantly. I saw Chase Parrish just posted something on Twitter today where he was responding to a poll that was like, did you all see it? I see people nodding. You guys?
I didn't see it. Tell me what it is.
Follow Chase on Twitter. So it was like the Actor magazine or whatever did a poll about, for actors, would you like to be informed when casting watches your tape? And it was like overwhelmingly yes, right? Of course. It was like 85% yes, right? And Chase responded to it being like, unless this was somehow automated where a system was automatically informed you when we opened your tape or something like that, there's no way we could do that. Because at this point, we are watching thousands of tapes per week. And doing all of our other jobs on top of that, right? Like, I think sometimes actors forget that casting is not just watching auditions. That's not all of a good third of our job is doing paperwork. A third of it.
Actually, this is a great place to start. I know we're going to circle back and fold in the rest of the answer later, but for people who are new to this, for people who haven't heard this pitch yet, beginning to end, producers, directors hand you a script. What is the process that you have to go through to even get the breakdown out, let alone to get all the way to it being cast, deal closed and everything?
Sure.
Sorry, I'm hot, y'all. I don't know if you see me fanning myself with a coaster.
Get it, girl. You're in the lights. So it's everything starts with the script, right? So we read through the script, we break down the characters ourselves so that we know what we're talking about, what needs to be cast. We have a good.
So casting writes the breakdowns.
Yeah. So breakdown they do rate them if you want them to. You could send them the entire script and they will literally break it down for you. I am maybe an old lady in that I write my own. Okay. I was talking with somebody else recently and they're like, oh God, no, nobody writes their own. I was like, I write my own. So,
yeah, nobody does that.
And I feel like all of the casting directors who are older than me also write their own. But I might just be projecting. Who knows? But so we just start by taking our own notes. We'll say that, right? Well, we just start by taking our own notes about what the characters are, who the leads are, who the supporting casts are, stuff like that. And then we start having concept meetings. So concept Zoom, concept phone call, concept emails, whatever. And we start talking about different characteristics for these particular characters. Some of them are very clear; they're obvious. They have a very clear voice, or they're a day player. It seems pretty clear, stuff like that. So we can kind of take that ball and run with it. But if there's something where we're like, okay, this is written as this age. Do we have flexibility here? This is written as a man. Are we open to women or non-binary people as well? We talk about that stuff. We're like, okay, this is written. This clearly has an arc. Talking about this person's cultural experience being a Mexican American. Are we having a family? Do they need to have an accent? We start having all of those different questions. For TV, if a character shows up, we're like, is this person going to come back? They feel like they've got a story here that we're going to find out more about. Are we going to see them again? So we talk about recurs, we talk about all that stuff. And then we craft the breakdown. The breakdown has to be approved by a million people, by the studio, the network, or depending if it's a feature, the studio will want to approve the breakdown. Then it finally gets released to everybody. Then we go through the process of fielding pitches, going through submissions, looking at everybody, choosing who we want to see, who we want to request. We start getting all of those out. Along the way, we are in other meetings. We're having, conference
Hold on,
calls.
can I stop you real quick?
Yes.
You're already on like step 10.
Oh,
and I don't think anybody's gotten inside you.
Step 10.
Like already tired. Okay, sorry. So you're having meetings. You're looking at recurrings. Okay. Yes. I just want everybody to keep up with how many steps she has already mentioned.
Yes. So we are already we're well into it at this point. Like I said, fielding phone calls and emails from your reps, choosing who we want to see, and putting together all of the information that we think you need to be able to audition thoughtfully, right? So we spend a lot of time crafting our instructions, our EcoCast instructions, if they have any character notes or project notes or just specific taping notes or whatever, all of that has to go in there. So we put all of that together. In the meantime, we are having constant liaise meetings, phone calls, emails, Zooms, whatever, with our executives at the studio level or the network level. They're checking in on us, getting updates from us. We're sending them updates.
I have one.
And we are also collaborating with another team usually. So I'm a Southeast casting director now, so I am often collaborating with an LA casting team. So we'll go back and forth with them. Like, okay, we've got these people ready to go. Do you want us to send them to you? Do you want it all to go out together? Do you want us to hold them until you have your people ready? So we're working with them so that we're making sure we're working as a team. Then we send stuff out, and producers are all different in terms of how they like to confer about these things. Some people like to confer offline or sidebar. Some people just do it all within the email chain, and there's no filters there. They're just like, this is what I feel, this is what I think. Love this person, don't love this person, whatever. We get feedback from them, whatever way that comes, and then we will either go back and look for more people if they didn't love anybody, or we will start moving people through the approval process, which is a whole nother round of emails to the studio, network, etc. We have to, at that, throughout this process, depending on the roles, we are also maintaining master lists. So if somebody's like, what about Adetinpo Thomas? Have you checked into her? We could be like, yes, she typed on this, or yes, we did check on her. She's not available. She's recurring on this other show, or whatever.
Amen.
Yes. So we're keeping all of those lists handy because eventually somebody needs them. And then once we get to the booking stage, the offers go out to your reps. We negotiate or not, or they just close. And then we've got to do the deal memos, the contracts, all of the SAG paperwork before we move on to the next thing. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think the whole question from actors of do they actually watch it? Yeah. That's our job. If you're getting your tapes to us by the time we've asked you to, by the deadline, there's no reason why we shouldn't watch it. Of course we're going to watch it. Do I even sometimes watch people who come in after the deadline?
Tell your friends. Tell your friends.
I don't love it. But if they are, if they communicate with me and I know it's coming late, then yeah, I'll watch it because they've taken the time to communicate with me. I've given them the go ahead. Then of course I'm gonna watch it. If they communicate with me and I'm like, no, it's gonna be too late, don't worry about it, and they still send it to me 10 hours late, I'll be like, okay, but I'll save it. Even if I don't watch it immediately. That's the nice thing about EcoCast too, is that all of our projects are saved. It's like a humongous database for our particular projects. So anytime you audition for us, or anytime we request you even, we see a history with you. So we can check and see what you've read for us before. We can go back and look at our old roles. We can watch your old tapes for us. I think I said that one time, and people were like, oh my God, you can see all my tapes? And I'm like, no, just the ones for me. Just the ones that I've requested. The other casting directors can't see the ones that I have requested, and I can't see theirs. So yeah, we have this amazing database. So even if it's something where we are, you send in your tape late, but we've uploaded it and kept it just so that we have it in our files, that we may still see it at some point. But we absolutely are looking at everything up until the deadline. Unless we communicate to you otherwise, where we're suddenly that deadline, we're like, we need it right now, and if you can't get it in, sorry, Charlie, then we'll tell you. But of course,
sorry, Charlie. I've never heard that. Is the process similar, or how much more extensive is it when it's bigger than a one-line co-star? Because I've heard actors lament, like, you have my reel, I've auditioned for you 10 times. Why do I have to audition for this one-line co-star? Unless you're just trying to see new people, versus it being series regulars, which I know you're working on, Winchesters, like that kind of stuff.
So when we're asking you to tape for something like that, even though we know you and love you well, for the one-liners, stuff like that, it's because our producers don't know you, and they may need to see you. So we could, if you could choose not to, that would be completely fine. If you were like, hey, Adetinpo loves you, Erica, and she'll do it, but she'd rather not audition for it. Can we send you her reel? And I would say yes or no to that, because maybe depending on my producers, if my producers are like, no, we need to see everything, then I would be like, they need to see everything, so it's up to her. Or I'll be like, absolutely, I love her. I'll send them her reel and glow about her. So again, that communication is key. For the series regulars and guest stars are sort of about as straightforward as the co-stars, right? They're kind of all going up at the same time. A lot of times people are casting guest stars off of tape without any sort of callback or Zoom or anything like that. So it's not all that different from the co-star process. In fact, we see fewer people for guest stars than we do for co-stars. So it's a smaller pool. But for series regulars, it's just an ongoing process until you find your person. And it takes as long as it takes. There's always one role in every project that takes forever. Forever. Always one. There sometimes more than one, but at least one, that you have to keep going back on. You go back on, you re-see people, you get new sides to re-see people who have already taped before, because something is not working, but the person is out there. And it just goes on and on and on until you find the person, because these are the actors and characters that you hope we're going to live with for the next 7+ years. So you just go and go and go until you get your people with series regulars.
So you told us the whole process from beginning to end. Probably 3 to 4 times longer than most people thought it was. Yikes. But you've gotten the tape. You're watching the tape. What is the experience for you that's different in person versus watching a tape?
In person versus watching a tape? The only difference for me is the physical proximity. That I know I'm preaching to the choir by saying this, but actors are gentle souls, right? Like, you wear your heart on your sleeves. You have to put yourself out there. We try to make sure that our physical space feels like a safe space for you to be able to do that. And I think there's something to be said about seeing an actor go through a process and being able to reach out and touch their hand, so that they know that there's somebody there with them, or to bring them back, right? They've gone to this horrible emotional place, and you need somebody to just bring you back, right? And watching a tape, it's watching a performance. I could easily see the exact same wonderful things in a tape that I see in the room. There's just, I don't have that connection with you. I can love a tape and I can glow about it to your reps, but there's something so great about you doing something amazing in the room and me being like, that was spectacular. You know, whatever. Like there's something about that, right? And I do try to make it a point when somebody really gives a read that I'm like, fuck, that was so good, of telling the reps. So even if it doesn't go their way, because it doesn't always, you know, because I think, nobody gets feedback, right? It just doesn't happen. And even when you do get feedback, it's rarely good. Right. It might be constructive or, you know, or meant to help, but it's rarely just like, God, that was so fucking good. So, I try to always make sure that I'm putting that out there when it really moves me to do so.
That's awesome. I know for a lot of us, we're constantly told this, no feedback is good feedback, because if you bombed it and they're like never going to see you again, you'll hear about it. But the win is getting another audition from that casting director, and I understand the truth in that. And now hearing why, you know, we can't get feedback more often or don't hear anything. Is there any, because I know you to be a huge advocate for actors, in a like social justice way, and also just like an interpersonal way. So is there any balm you can offer to people who are anguishing over their shits in the river, you know?
Yes. Those are all very important parts of your bodily functions. No, I think people forget, because it does feel like you're sending it to a void, that somebody's on the other side of the internet excited to see what you're gonna do.
Excited
You know?
to see. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, people always ask, do you watch tapes before the deadline or do you watch tapes at the deadline? And for me, if I have the time, I watch them as they come in because I'm excited. I want to see what people are doing. I want to see how it's going. I want to see if there's something that is missing clearly that people need to be informed about. I want to see, you know, what's out there and how people are doing and how people are taking this material, and you know, are they able to discern the tone and all of that stuff. But I'm excited. The first time for me, one of the best things about doing television is that we constantly have new roles, right? So it's always fresh in a lot of ways. And for me, the first time that I hear somebody read material, whether it be live or on a Zoom or via self-tape, it is like being a kid on Christmas Day, where you're like, how is this, what's going to happen? It's so interesting. We are excited. Our jobs don't exist without you all. And so we are on the other side of our computers waiting to see what's going to come in, how's it going to go, what is this actor who I absolutely love, what are they going to do with the material? I haven't seen them in forever. How do they look? How's this going to be? This is so fun. It's great. It's the most fun part. This is why people think casting directors have the best jobs, because we get to watch auditions, right? It is the best part of our jobs. So why would we not take full advantage of the best part of our jobs and watch everything that's sent to us by the deadline?
Right.
You know, because it's what we all got into this for. So, you know, if you can remember that sitting on the other side of the internet is somebody who's like, I cannot wait to see what they're going to do, hopefully that'll help.
I don't know how anybody else feels. That was uplifting. I feel supported.
Good.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is nodding.
Good.
I have two. See, you're just saying so many, like you're dropping so many gems. When it comes to tone, and it's the first season of a thing.
Sure.
Outside of, I guess, being able to look up the producers and what they've done previously, maybe the writer, maybe the director, is there any sort of advice about shooting your shot when it's the first season of something and no episodes have aired?
So yes, there might be a specific note in the EcoCast instructions, so read all of the EcoCast instructions. But finding out the people involved is going to help. finding out what this project is for. So, television first season or a feature, whatever, who the writer is, who the director is, which network or streamer or cable is it for. All of that stuff will give you an idea of tone. All of it will. And then what you see on the page will help you too. If it's ridiculously laugh out loud funny, then maybe it's a little bit bigger. But if it seems ridiculous, laugh out loud funny, and then in the EcoCast instruction, there's a note saying, this is actually very dark and edgy. Don't go overboard with the comedy.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta make sure you're putting those things together. Because that's what happens for the most, I mean, you, especially all of you wonderful actors here in the Southeast, the note, the real and grounded note, right?
What is that? Yeah. Why?
Literally on everything. Do you
What
want
they
to know
talking
why?
about?
You want to know why?
Tell me.
That note exists because people will just act their brains out with a self-tape because you're trying to stand out. Okay. That's the thing. That's, you are in a pile of tapes, you aren't in the room, whatever. And so in an effort to stand out, people will act their brains out. They will do things that they never would do, that they would never do instinctually on set, or even from their own technique. They're just throwing shit at the wall. And so that note is to remind people that this is a real thing. We want you to feel like a real person, not like an actor playing a character. So that you see that note all the time, because here in the Southeast, as you all well know, this was a self-tape market long before the pandemic. So that note was sort of the note from everybody. I would coach people. They would be taping for other casting directors in the region. And that was always the note. Didn't matter what it was. Comedy, drama, real and grounded, real and grounded, real and grounded. So, but that's just because people were doing way too much. They were just acting for the mezzanine as opposed to, keeping it focused on being and letting subtleties come through. So that's where that note comes from.
No, I received that. And as we're talking about script, what are your feelings about people asking to read the script, depending on, guest star and up?
Listen, if it were up to me, I would give everybody a script no matter what role you were reading for, whether it's a one-liner or a guest star or a series regular. We can't do that. It's just, it's the internet. The internet has spoiled everything. Back in the day when I first started in casting, we would always give out a script. With every audition we sent out, we would also send out the script, even for the co-stars. And then the internet started spoiling things. I was working on Criminal Minds at the time, which of course it's not a serialized show, right? It's a procedural. There's a solve a case every episode, right? So not a ton you can spoil, right? But Criminal Minds has a rabid fan base.
Yes.
Rabid fan base.
Aggressive.
And yes. And they would take our breakdowns, and our breakdowns were full of information about the character. Because again, we wanted actors to have as much information as possible, especially for when they were playing killers. We wanted them to know, what the backstory was, the psychopathy behind the killers and stuff like that. So we would pack the breakdown character descriptions with story information. And one day, one of our writers came to us, and he had one of our breakdowns, and it had been on spoilertv.com or something like that. I don't know if that site still exists or whatever, but he was like, we can't do this anymore. And so our breakdowns went from being full of information to being like, male, 40s. He had a difficult childhood and now is experiencing the trauma of that.
Oh,
They started becoming just completely vague because they had to. We would, instead of using names, we would just call them, we would make up names. That's where dummy starts came from. That's where breakdowns with a lack of information came from, is that things get spoiled. So at that point, we stopped giving out the script until people were hired, no matter what. So we would try to sort of make up for it by putting more pages in the sides. So see the arc that way, but even that,
but you're also one of the casting directors that's like, here's 10 pages, but read this one scene that is 2 pages. Some people are like, here's 16 pages, read all 10 pages, send it back tomorrow, 2:00. And you're like, I have to work at the bookstore to pay for my food. I cannot do this.
I'm a less is more on the pages kind of gal.
Yeah.
Very much a less is more. You don't need all that. Do you need all that, really? You need to see
They don't need all
they're
that.
gonna do? My God. I was just working with an actor. She was reading for a role on I can't remember what show it is. It's another CBS show. And I'm not working on this show. She just sent it to me to look at her tapes. And it was 16 pages. And it was 4 scenes, 16 pages. And I was like, did you have to do all of these? And she was like, yeah, all of them. And I was like, but they're the same. Like, these scenes are not different from each other. And she was like, I know. So
and you have to memorize them, even though they're technically, if you have to memorize it, you're supposed to be being paid, but you have a better chance if you memorize it. So it's not in your, like, it's a whole thing, you know.
I'm not into that. But I was talking to her because the casting director, I know the casting director on that show, and I was like, that is not her style at all. I was like, that must be the producers. And she was like, yeah, because she was like, I've auditioned for this casting director for her other shows, and she doesn't do that. And I was like, that's a producer request for sure. So that's what happens. So we have to sort of, you know, we have to guide our producers, but they're also our bosses. You know, we have to make sure that we are giving them what they need in terms of making decisions. So it's a balancing act for us. Our part of our job is to suggest, like, hey, let's save these other 2 scenes for callbacks if you need them. And just do these 6 pages instead of these 16 pages. But they can say, no, we need to see it all.
Mm-hmm. What is the relationship difference between the producers and the director when it comes to what you guys are doing per episode?
So for television is always a little bit different because a lot of times the director in television is a guest, right? Mm-hmm. They're coming in for a single episode or a couple of episodes, and then they're gonna peace out again. So they're often weighing in with their opinions. They have to. It's literally part of the DGA contract, so they have to see and weigh in with their opinions. But they often defer to the showrunner. If it's a character that is going to come back or have a big arc or whatever, they're like, well, this person's only in 1 episode for me, so I'll leave it up to these folks. This is what I think. So they will sort of provide their feedback, but they're fine being overruled as well, since they're the guest. In features, the director gets all the say. They get all the say. So it's a totally different experience in terms of collaborating with them. And it depends on the director. You know, some directors are new directors and they've got oversight in terms of the other producers or a studio. And some directors, like when I worked on the second Star Trek movie, JJ was directing it, and the studio was like, just tell us who you're hiring. Like, there was no approval process. They were like, whoever JJ wants is fine. Just tell us who it is. So,
what is oh, go ahead.
No, that's it.
I was just gonna say, what is the approval process like? I think so often you audition, you hear literally nothing, and then, oh, you got an offer. Do you like this deal, or should we try to negotiate? But what does that look like when it's, okay, the producers have agreed, but one studio needs to agree and the network needs to agree? And like, what is that part like?
So again, it depends on the role, right? So for a first year show, more people will weigh in with their opinions because, again, everybody's trying to craft the overall look vibe of this show. So you will have the, you know, development people weigh in, the casting people weigh in, the current people weigh in, and then the head of the studio or whatever weighs in. Whereas with co-stars, they just let the casting department weigh in, and then maybe the drama department or whatever. And then it goes to the network, but sometimes there are 2 networks, sometimes there are 2 studios. So it's not just this set of executives and then you're on your way. It's this set of executives and then this set of executives and then you're on your way. So it just depends on the role. Obviously with series regulars, it's much more involved. You know, it's a testing situation, and the, you know, the heads of the studios and network have to weigh in and all of that. But, you know, everything is mostly done virtually. You know, there was a point where, like, the executives would get together and be like, we're watching everything now, whatever. But some, you know, for the most part, I think people are still watching stuff on their own and then just conferring together.
What are circumstances that you've seen? Because now I just want some tea. What are circumstances you've seen when people get all the way past producers, but maybe the network or studio says no? Like, what are reasons why?
There's a million.
Mm.
So if like when I was working on a network show, if that person was on an episode of another show on that same network that was going to air that same week, they couldn't do both.
Hmm.
If it was going to air a week apart, it would be fine, but the same week, no. If somebody looked too much like another character, they would say no. If somebody felt like this role was supposed to be super sexy and they didn't find this person super sexy, they would say no. If they just didn't love them for whatever reason, they didn't find them appealing for this particular character, they could say no. There are a billion reasons. For the most part, our executives are very collaborative. They are there to support us. And they do, I've had multiple different experiences, but I've had a lot of very supportive experiences from my casting executives. And they're there to make sure that we succeed. You know, it is a team effort, even though it feels a little bit like oversight. You know, they're going for the best possible product as well. Everybody wants the thing to succeed. So at the end of the day, and we have conversations where, you know, where we can say, okay, we hear you about, you know, your feelings on this sexiness, but we think he's the guy. Can we show you something else? Can we show you another take? Can we show you a reel? I mean, I've done collages of pictures of people to show how sexy they are before. I tell you. I worked on a show once, and they needed this male love of interest, and he needed to be sexy. And in his audition, I found him
just for us. Where should I be putting my sexy pictures for the scenario? Is it Instagram?
So yes, Instagram is fine. But
Okay.
I'll tell you where I got this particular one. So,
oh God.
So he looked very normal in his audition, and they were like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel that special, that sexy. And I was like, because I had his energy, right? Like I was in the room with him, and I was like, trust me, this kid is sexy. And they were like, I'm not really seeing it. So
HR is so stressed out.
so sorry. He had played Melchior Gabor in Spring Awakening, and he in LA at the Amundsen, and so they had done all this press for that. It was the West Coast premiere of it. And so he had all these pictures in the stupid white button-up shirts with the suspenders, and he's like making out with somebody, or just like getting, you know, the like open mouth, like almost kissing pictures. And I just grabbed a bunch of the Spring Awakening press photos, and I made a collage of them, and I was like, here you go. And they were like, okay. And they hired him, and he was very successful in that role. So,
you hear that, boys and girls? Make sure Erica can find your sexy pictures easily, okay?
I tell you, I am not afraid of a little art project.
That's awesome though, and a lot of people don't go above and beyond the way I've seen you do, not just for brownie points, for internet points, for like watch my reels, but like it's genuinely like, y'all, it's okay. Like, just take a deep breath. We're all in this together. I'm trying to help you out, because that's not everybody's MO. And I think I've been really lucky in getting people like Taylor from AWA and, you know, Andre last month, people who are really willing to like, no, I care about these people and I want to help them succeed. I think sometimes I feel like you can tell, just like when we're phoning it in or when we're stressed or when we're projecting, you can kind of feel that from casting sometimes too. We're like, you guys don't give a fuck about me. Like, this could be me, this could be my cat, like whatever. Like, you know, as long as the role gets cast, we can move on.
You know, we are human beings too, and we're stressed out too. And some of us are friendlier than others, and you know, it doesn't mean that anybody loves actors less. So, you know, I think, and I've heard loads of stories of people being like, oh, those casting directors just don't like actors. And I'm like, well, but here's the thing. You can't do this job if you don't like actors. because we're with you all of the time. I mean, even if we're not physically, obviously everything's virtual right now, we're still with you all of the time. When we're spending all of my days looking at your materials, looking at your tapes, talking with your reps, whatever. Like, there's no way you could be a casting director if you were like, actors.
That's comforting to hear, actually.
So even when people aren't as friendly as you hope they might be, it doesn't mean that they don't love you.
I received that. I was speaking from experience. I was talking about. No, I'm kidding. Thank you. So we're getting to a point now where I try to let the guests go around 9:30.
Sure.
But I have 2 more questions that I actually sent you. So I'm going to ask those questions.
Sure.
I'm going to send you, and then we'll open it up to everybody else.
Okay.
So we can do this rapid fire. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be any longer than you want it to be.
Okay, great.
What is your end goal in this? What is like the ideal scenario for you with doing this?
My husband asks me that all the time too. I don't know. I really like it. I there was a time in my 20s where I was like, I'm going to do this until I'm 90. And then I was like, retirement.
Oh, right.
That doesn't sound awful. So no, but I mean, I'm really lucky. I'm super lucky. I really love my job. I really love casting. I really love working with actors. I love teaching classes. I've always loved teaching classes. And I enjoy it. I'm really lucky. I think one of the things that this pandemic has given us, of course, is the flexibility to spend time with our families too and work. And I feel really lucky that I can work from home and go snuggle my baby, between seeing actors or between looking at tapes and then go back to work. So right now I'm kind of feel like I'm living a dream. So I'm just going to roll with it for now.
No,
and we'll see what happens.
That's super low stakes. I love that. I think something I've been trying to do in my life, there's so many things that I've been taught that it's just like, you will die if it does not happen. You need to get to work on time or you will die. You need to lose 5 pounds or you will, and there's so many things that are, the stakes could not be lower. It's so unimportant. Right. So to be able to just go like, until I want to do something else, I'll do this. I think is such a beautiful outlook. It's such a beautiful outlook. You're such a good person. I like you. My next question, which is also hopefully trending towards the good. I think so many people I'm seeing a lot of like smiling faces from the people who are watching. And I think I'm seeing a lot of comments pop up too. People are like, okay, maybe this isn't so bad. Like maybe I'll do this another week. And in that, I do want to ask, what brings you joy?
My kidlets bring me joy. Seeing so here's a fun one. Actor related. There's this actor here in the Southeast. I've been trying to hire him. He's gotten so close on so many of my things. So close. Like he was the choice and then the role would get cut. Or he was the choice and then they needed to go older or whatever. Like he's so close. I've not been able to hire him. He's so good. And I love this guy. And finally, he came really close on something I'm currently casting and it swung his way. Finally. And I got to call his agent and be like, he's the guy, he's approved, you're getting an offer, it's coming. And this wonderful, sweet agent, when she got the offer, she FaceTimed him and took a screenshot of his reaction and sent it to me. And it was just so fun. He was so happy. It was so great to just be part of that whole process because
that's lovely.
That's how we do it. We're really lucky that we get to be the ones to be like, here's a job, like it's so great. And it's fun when it is somebody who's been working their butt off for it and it's their turn and it's just it's absolutely delightful. So that brings me a lot of joy. Of course that isn't as frequent as the stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis, which is just watch your work and see what's out there. I'm casting a role right now and it's one of those roles where it's the physical body type of the character description doesn't at all match what they're saying.
Cool.
And so that juxtaposition is quite funny. And so I was reading this actor for it. He's this huge dude, huge, like muscly dude, deep voice. And it's a really funny role. And I Zoomed with him to work on it a little bit. And he was like, this was a blast. Like, I don't ever get this stuff. I can't believe this role exists. It is just so fun. And we had a great time. I sent through tapes today, including his, and the director was like, he literally made me laugh out loud. So stuff like that is just great. It's validating. It's this whole like fun, collaborative, artistic experience that, man, I mean, sometimes it's just like, fuck, we are really lucky to do what we do. So
okay, so I now have follow-up questions, but I will email you because other people need to be able to ask their questions. The last one is, what inspires you? And I imagine I can guess the answer, but please.
Yeah, I mean, really, that you all do. You know, you are, when we are breaking down scripts or, you know, when I am reading through something for the first time and hearing voices in my head as I'm reading the dialogue, I'm picturing the actors. I'm picturing who's available. I'm coming up with ideas of who should read for this thing as I go through it. And so you all are always on the forefronts of our brains, always. And you are the reason that we're like, oh, we've got a great person for this. Oh, can't wait to show you this tape of this person. They're perfect for it. Whatever. It's y'all. So there you go.
So what inspires you that has nothing to do with your job?
Oh,
no, your answer was great. I just mean in addition. You failed, Erica.
So
Get
sorry.
off my Zoom call.
So as a lady, I with two sons, it is really meaningful for me to let them see that I work hard, that I have a job that I really like, but also my husband during the pandemic, he became a full-time dad. So he is the primary caregiver and I am the person who makes the money. And so for me to show my sons that this version of things is not only okay, but it works great is really, really important to me. And it sort of pushes me to be like, look, kids, gender roles are not anything. So, you know.
Not you being a female icon in your own house.
Yeah, no,
okay.
That's what we did.
That's
Listen,
amazing.
I'm the only lady here. Somebody's got to stand up. So.
Okay, I think so many people have been like, I'm crying, and I'm gonna try not to tear up. Juliet has been dropping in some amazing things in the chat. I see it here, but I want to give you the chance to talk to Erica. Are you comfortable with that, guys? If I pin you and you just ask yourselves? Yeah? Okay, let me unpin myself. Oh, nope, that's the opposite. I'm really good at this. I'm such a good millennial. I just want you all to know that this is like...
Listen, better you than me. That was so hard.
There we go.
Hi.
Hi, Juliet.
I live in Colorado. We're actually moving to LA because our town burned down. So
oh God, I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, it's been weird. We're actually on fire right now, as a matter of fact. Yeah. But I didn't want to miss this, so
it's recorded, Juliet.
So I had a couple of questions about being in different markets. I have agents in Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico. Mm-hmm. And I primarily work in the Southwest. I've done some work in Tennessee, other places. I have the ability to fly for free. Here's my question. If I put that in the notes and I say, I am available, I can fly for free, I don't have representation in this market though. I mean, does that matter?
It doesn't matter, but you're probably not going to have access to those breakdowns.
Okay.
You're not going to have access to be able to submit on those roles. Okay. So that is the benefit of having a local representation, whether it be an agent or a manager in whatever market, is that they do see the breakdowns and they can say, she flies for free. She's based here, but flies for free, works as a local in whatever place, right? And here's the thing, being a local hire places is not as simple as just getting yourself there. That is one obviously main piece of it, of course, but a lot of these productions will require you to have an address. It can't be an Airbnb or a hotel address, depending on the production. Some productions don't care. There are 2 states that require you to do more than that. Louisiana, you have to have a Louisiana address on your ID to count toward their tax incentives to be a true Louisiana hire. Texas, you have to provide a utility bill. So those are the 2 states that have very stringent rules. You could get yourself there and put yourself up, but you won't count toward their incentives. So again, some of that stuff, you just have to be aware of what it's going to take, what it's going to mean to be a local hire. It's amazing that you can fly places for free. And I think you should, as you're trying to get reps in other markets, that should be the thing you talk about. But that's just a piece of it. You're not going to be able to submit and leave that note for casting without a local rep.
I do have family in Atlanta, so I was just there last week, as a matter of fact. So I think I'll bomb in on family and try to get myself a rep out there. So.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Be
Thank
safe,
you so
Juliet. Oh my gosh. I hope you're okay.
Yes, Juliet, please tend to your home. Thank you for your question. Sierra, there you are. I'm going to add you and Juliet. Thank you again so much.
Hi, Erica.
Hello.
So before I ask my question, I just want to say thank you for your social media presence. It is
You're welcome.
So much appreciated. I think you were one of the first casting actors I followed because I just you're so just generous with the knowledge. I think last month you were the 2 takes post.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my God, Erica said it's okay not to submit 2 takes. I can stop freaking out about those times when I just don't have another idea. And
yes, please don't stress about that stuff.
But I was just really curious about sort of like you and your passion areas. So I'll ask 2 questions. It's really just one, and you can choose which one you want to answer. But what is it about the projects that you decide to work on, whether that's the genre or the team or the network or anything, and or if they're if you had an ideal project that you could bring to the Southeast to cast, what would it be?
A musical. Obviously. That's what I would bring to the Southeast if I could. There's just, none of those, and they're all in New York. In terms of the thing that draws me to a project, the first thing is always the script. If the script is good, everything else is easy. Everything is easy, right? A lot of times the thing that draws me to a project is the relationship initially, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a producer I've worked with before, or a writer or a director that I've worked with before. And you hope that the script is going to be as great as that person. But it's not always. I finally had to move away from an indie with producers who I loved, but the script was very average. And I worked on it for a bit, and I just was not able to help crack the nut for them. And finally I was like, I think maybe you need a different person helping you on this one. And they did. And we still keep in touch and whatever, but ideally you get both, right? You get this amazing, wonderful script that you're excited to work on. You can't wait to work on the characters, and you get these wonderful creatives that you get to work with and collaborate with as well. And when those stars align, everything is just magical and wonderful. And, those are the dreamy ones.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. Please keep posting as you have time. So helpful.
I'll try. I'm getting worse at doing it, but I'll try.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Sierra. Lorenzo, I didn't mean to skip you in the chat, man. Ask your question. You're muted.
Oh, thank you. You're fine. First of all, this is actually my first time hearing you speak, Erica, and it does feel good to feel like you're really on our team. I've probably talked closely with 2 other casting directors kind of like that, but it's not always the case. And I'm just very appreciative of you really advocating for us. I have a question. I'm gonna sum it up. I'm not gonna give my whole biography because my life and acting career really has been. But I started acting and had a number of things holding me back between toxic relationships, and not going to give you the whole story, but I didn't even know for really the first 12 years of my career. I would, go to fourth and fifth callbacks or whatever, and, they ask me, can you come to LA? Are you SAG? All this kind of stuff, telling me restaurants to try out, when I get on the project. And at the end of the day, whether it's studio or network, I used to have like baby moles all over my face. And I'm trying to get emotional. I've actually been on a pilot where the writer, it's TV, so the writer brought me in because he liked me, and the producers were in the background just talking about how ugly I was, and it's pretty horrible. But anyway, I figured out Hollywood was a little superficial. I got the moles removed from my face, and so as it was, my career started gaining some momentum. So the last 2 or 3 years have been pretty decent, but now I have another problem. In March, I did, in fact, go to get the first vaccination. My father passed away of lupus, and so it made me nervous. I started having adverse reactions, literally, really. So my doctor gave me a medical exemption, and I had the paper, and I'm thinking, that'd be okay because they're saying, we'll respect that or whatever. Last 5 months have been, there's first right to refusal. There's, pinning you for the role, checking your availability. With my agency, we have booking sheets. And, when you get the booking sheet, you'll, I don't know, I'm getting so emotional. Sorry. When you, when you get the booking sheet, usually, I'm so sorry. I thought I was going to hold it together. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, don't apologize. Take your time.
With my agency, you usually get the booking role, and then you talk to maybe wardrobe or the second AD or whatever, figure out when you come on set. And I've 4 roles. I've gotten to the booking sheet, but I have literal medical exemption. It's not me being an a-hole and saying I'm not. I tried, and so I keep getting cast and dropped because I have a medical exemption, and they're like mandatory vax. So I guess my question is, like I said, I'm just starting to pick up some momentum here with my career, and I guess the question is, how long is this going to last? Should I just go back to focusing more on writing? Because it just sucks. You get that, you keep getting the books sheet and it's like, oh, you got to send over your status also. And then I send over my status. It's like, no, you can't come on set. So it's like, and these are things I'm thinking, oh, this is going to take my career to the next level. I'm getting momentum, but this is the next big step. It's guest starring or, and I don't know what to do.
So first of all, listen, don't be shy about your emotions. This is a very difficult career for anybody, and the ups and downs that you've gone through is a lot, and this pandemic has made all of us sort of a big raw nerve, right? So feel your feelings. You are an actor, you're supposed to have access to those, okay? In terms of the vaccination, unfortunately, that is above my pay grade. That is something that I can't completely answer for you. In my experience, some of the projects that I have worked on, they move so quickly that the studios say, we don't have enough time to vet the exemptions in order to get these people to work. So here, let me just give you an overview of that so that you can see, right? To vet the exemption, it has to run through HR and legal and the COVID team. There's like multiple people that have to discuss with the actor, be available to talk to the actor, blah, 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 or the crew member, to, obviously anybody in Zone A, right? So all of that takes time. They've got to go through the whole, whatever they do. I have no clue what they do, but they have to do their thing. Our process has shrunk in terms of the amount of time because of testing. So you have to test before you go to wardrobe. Wardrobe needs you at least a day or 2 in advance of shooting. So like on an average 8-day show, right, which is a standard amount of time for drama, we would normally have 8 days to cast. We would get the script and start going. Now we have to cast people by day 5 or 6 at the latest, so that they can start their testing cadence, so they can get to wardrobe. So that amount of time where we creatively had all that time, now we have significantly less time. And additionally, the script isn't always ready for us on day one. If the script doesn't get to us until day 2, that means we've got 3 to 4 days maybe to cast everybody, get them tested, get the COVID team involved in whatever. And so by the time that lands to the COVID team, they find out you have an exemption. They realize they don't have enough time to vet that exemption before they need to get you to wardrobe. So that's where I'm sure you're running into some of these things. Is that an across the board thing? No, of course not. There's going to be some studios or networks or whatever. It's the studios that, they're the ones employing you. So there's going to be some studios that have the time to vet the exemption, or there's going to be some studios that are becoming more lenient with your exemption, saying, great, just submit this paperwork and we'll call it good. I don't, again, that whole process is far above my pay grade. So I don't know, but I do know how fast my actual, amount of time is. And it is shrunk because of COVID. So that is a big piece of it. What I would say to you is, it's not going to go on forever. There's going to be a point where, because these policies are in place because of the insurance, right? It's not just people being like, fuck you, this is what we're doing now. It's because the insurance companies are like, we will not insure you, your production, without these policies. So whatever that is however that needle moves, whether it be that case counts have gone down or enough people have been vaccinated that it's less of a thing, or what they're doing now, in my experience on shows, is that when there's a positive COVID case on set, instead of shutting down like they did, now they just inform people. They say, please be aware, if you have symptoms, don't report to work. The chain of, the contact chain has been alerted, blah, 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 blah. So they don't shut down. So I don't know if that means everything is shifting a little bit toward a little more grace. And it's going to get easier for people who aren't fully vaccinated. I don't really know. All I can say to you, Lorenzo, is keep your chin up. I know it's difficult and frustrating, but the fact that it has nothing to do with your acting is a good sign. That when it comes time for it to be a job where it's your chops, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. So do whatever's going to help you maintain your mental health right now. So if you're like, clearly this is not happening for me right now, I'm going to just focus on the writing so I can keep myself filled, my cup filled as this process goes on, then do it. Whatever it's going to take to help you with that. But the true answer to your question, Lorenzo, is I don't know.
No, your perspective. I appreciate that.
Good. Okay. I'm glad.
Do we know what the process of vetting is? Like, what does that mean?
Absolutely
Okay.
No clue. All I know from what I'm told is that it involves multiple departments. It's the COVID team, it's the HR team, it's the legal team, and then maybe the casting team. I have no idea, but not me, the casting team, like the studio casting.
Executive.
The only time that it has happened where I have been lied to about somebody's vaccination status, and those teams all had to get involved. It took like a good 3 weeks. Finally, they discovered that this person who had said they had been fully vaccinated and then said they had a medical exemption was indeed not at all vaccinated. So, but it took 3 weeks to get there. So that's my only experience with the vetting of it all.
Okay. I really appreciate that. I want to take up all the time. Thank you so much.
Sure, Lorenzo. Keep your chin up.
Sending you love, Lorenzo.
Yeah, truly.
Sarah, you're up next.
Hi, Erica.
Hi, Sarah.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Congrats on your son, by the way. I didn't even know.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Yep. 2 babies.
I just had a question about series regulars. So I was up for a series reg and I had the audition and everything. And then we had to send the tapes via a private, like downloadable type of thing. So not EcoCast, just like email. And they like didn't download them.
Okay.
So, and it's been like a month.
You can see that they didn't download them?
Through WeTransfer, you can see when like files are downloaded.
Oh, it's through WeTransfer. Okay, got it. Yeah.
I used WeTransfer, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And so like I could see that they like hadn't downloaded the files and it's been like a month. And then I resent them and because the link like goes away.
Yeah.
So I sent another one. I was like, hey, I saw the link expired. Here's another one. And they didn't download that one either. And it expired. And so I was like, yeah. And it's international as well. So I didn't know if that has anything to do with the length of time or anything like that. So I was wondering if for series regs after a month, I should just wipe my hands and just kind of not send another link.
You should wipe your hands at any point, right? Like once it's out in the ether, for your sanity, you should wipe your hands. But it is hard when you can see that it's not been downloaded and you're like, did they get it? Did they get it? Because sometimes it does get stuck in the ether, So I think it's completely fine for you to have followed up once. I don't think you probably need to follow up again, because if it's international and there's something else going on with that, meaning like visa process or maybe the project is pushed or whatever, they're just going to do whatever they do. And if they need it, where they finally get around to your link and it's expired, they're going to email you and be like, hey, this expired. Can you resend it? So, I know that's frustrating because you put a lot of effort into it and you followed up already, but I imagine there is a reason behind it. So
what is the timeline for these things? Thank you, Sarah. What is the timeline for these things? I auditioned for, this isn't about me, I'm sorry. But if you audition for something that doesn't like start until July, but you auditioned last month, of course you do wipe your hands of the thing, walk away. If you need to know anything more, they will contact you. But is there like a frame where you can go like, okay, because usually, the date comes and goes, you didn't get it. But if it's that far out, what is the reasonable time to assume that like you're no longer in contention?
You kind of can't until you see it in the trades or hear it some other way. So the most amount of time that I ever spent working on series regulars was when we did Altered Carbon. Working on that was like working on a movie. We had 9 months to cast our series regulars. That's just is insane. That just doesn't happen. And we auditioned a bunch of women for the female lead, and we just were not. Then we chemistry read a bunch of women. They didn't go with anybody, so we had to kind of start over. So by the time we got to that point of starting over, we were like, okay, let's re-see some of the people that we've already seen before. And so we called in a woman who initially taped 3 months prior to being called back. And she came in and she was like, what am I doing here? And we were like, we're doing it. And she ended up getting it. But like literally it was one of those things where she was like, I forgot about this project. And she had moved on. And we hadn't cast it. We came back around 3 months later. So it's for series regulars, it's almost never that amount of time. I mean, that's an insane amount of time. Generally speaking, these days they give us 6 weeks, if not less, to cast series regulars. So you would hear within, 4 to 6 weeks, and you might see when the shoot date is. If the shoot date is approaching and you've not heard, then it's probably done a different way. So cool. That's another indicator as well. But I think the best thing you can do is once you send something out, you move on. It's hard, I know, because you're invested. But the best thing you can do for your sanity and for whatever comes next in terms of opportunities is to just be in the present and not think about what if. I know it's hard. I know.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Elizabeth B has a question.
Great. And then I'm going to have to wrap it up. But yes, Elizabeth B, hit me. Oh, Elizabeth, you're muted.
Elizabeth, you're muted.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you so much for answering my question. So I have a question about self-tapes, because I have a history in theater and musical theater, so they usually like to see us in person. And I was doing, and whenever I've gotten indies, it's been some weird way where like I know someone who knows someone and that kind of weird thing. So I'm pretty new to the whole self-tape thing. And then I did a self-tape and I'm like looking at 10 different takes and I'm like, how on earth do I decide? And I'm sure I'm probably not the only actor here going, like, I feel like they're all like so similar and so different. How do you suggest, because you know this is what you're looking at and you're trying to differentiate us, and how do you suggest an actor decides for self-tapes?
So it's really hard. It's really hard, right? It's the worst part. Because sometimes we have to choose which take to send, and it's not our own faces that we're looking at. So you have my deepest sympathies. First of all, 10 takes is too many to choose from. That's step number one. Okay. Do no more than 3. Do no more than 3, and then watch them back. See if you got it. If you don't feel like you got it, do one more. Okay. Then you will be able to. It's a lot easier to choose from 4 than it is from 10. Okay. The other thing that will help is if you're able to step away for a few minutes to get out of your actor brain. Right. The thing with self-tapes is that you are self-directing. So you are acting and directing, okay? There needs to be a little break between those things because otherwise you lose objectivity, right? You're already losing objectivity just staring at your own face. But
I see every single flaw.
Right. It's even harder when you've just acted, your emotions are on your sleeve, and then you turn around and you look at your phone and you're watching the tapes and you're like, oh my God, my face. Like, ugh. And you just can't be objective, right? So the best thing you can do is do your takes and walk away. If you can leave them overnight and watch them again in the morning, that's the best. But if not, take 5 minutes and walk away, get out of your character headspace, go outside, check Twitter, do whatever, come back and then watch them. Take space, literal space from acting before you watch. And then if you watch and you're like, okay, I know what I need to do in this final take space from watching before you walk back in front of the camera to tape again. There needs to be a little space between those things. That is the only way for you to separate it at all. Okay? And then if you need an extra reference, you can go back and look at the breakdown and be like, okay, let me just look through and see if there's any other nugget of information on here that can help me choose which of these takes, because this take has a little more whatever, or this take has a little less whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that might help too.
That's really good feedback. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You have been delightful. I'm so pleased and so excited that you're able to join us. It's been so comforting and so informative. And I actually technically have a link to ask people for feedback if they want to give it. Is there a way for people to get in contact with you or to follow you?
Sure.
If anything you want to shout out. I know you coach, I know you teach.
Sure. Yep. I've got a few classes. You can find all of my stuff on my website, which is ericasbreamcasting.com. And then I'm on Twitter and I'm on Instagram at Erica S. Bream Cast for those. And you are welcome to be in touch with me through any of those. You can be in touch with me through my website or on social media. Whatever you'd like to do would be great.
Thank you again. Oh, geez. Thank you. I tried to type it in the chat and I sent it directly to somebody. Erica S. Bream casting.com.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And we are here. We'll be back next month. Join Storyteller Sessions. If you haven't, follow Erica on social media. Keep your head up and keep the faith. They're watching your tapes. Keep sending the good stuff. And what is for you will be yours.
Totally.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Good night, Erica.
Thank you.
Thank you, Profound.